Okay, so I am going to show you how I make the Kahoots that I've been posting alongside my listening and learning activities. It's pretty easy. I made my Kahoot account along with my Microsoft account, so those two are linked. I know that you can also link it with your Google account, and I just have the free one. There's definitely more features in the one that you pay for, but right now, I don't really think it's necessary to have that one, so I just use the free one. And you can go into your Kahoots, and as you can see, I have my little library right here. And then to make a new one, you just go in and you hit create. And it brings you to this right here. And I just use the normal one because that's what I'm familiar with. And that's what I know looks like when it's being played. I know what the children are seeing because I have used this in other classrooms before. So I just click create for this one and it brings me right here. Now this right here is a question. This is your first question, but I would like to create my title slide first. And so I just click that and it brings me to the Kahoot summary. And that's where I have the title that I just keep the same as the listening and learning activity that I post on Seesaw. I upload the thumbnail so it's the same between the Kahoot activity and the Seesaw activity. I add a little description just to kind of have it, just to put in another reminder that the children have to do the Seesaw activities first before they play this. And I just go ahead and do that, and then I go ahead and start my questions. So now that I have my title and my description all written out, I like to come over here and I like to upload the same thumbnail that the children will see throughout so they know that each one goes together. And I just pick it from my desktop, upload it, there it is ready to go. And then I come down here and I just click done. I don't really change any of this because I don't feel like I need to. So I just go ahead and click done. And that brings me to my first question where I'd be ready to go ahead and start the different Kahoots. I like to put about 10 questions in each of these just because I don't really want to overwhelm them. And I feel like that's a good goal to have while they're at home doing this by themselves. I've definitely played these in the classroom with fourth graders and I think other second grade classrooms. And they're really fun to do in the classroom if you are lucky enough to have class sets of devices. So in the classroom, I would probably do more than 10 questions, but since we're at home doing all these by ourselves, I think that 10 is enough. So what I do is I just go ahead and I'm going to type in my first question and I'm going to do it on the vocabulary word lanterns. So I'm just going to do what are lanterns? And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to just start typing in the answers. It doesn't matter which ones you make the right answer. So if I wanted the right answer to be at the third one, I could go ahead and just go to the third one. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to put lights that have a covering around them. And to mark it as the correct answer so the game knows what the correct answer is, you need to make sure that you put a check right there. And you'll know that you have a check right there because if you come over here, then there's a green dot showing you where you have your correct answer marked. And that's really helpful as I'm going in and adding more and more questions because it helps me check my work quickly to know that I did mark each question with the correct answer, so I don't need to go back in and look closely to every question just to find that out. Another thing that I like to make sure that I do is I like to change the time limit. I think 20 seconds is a little bit too fast for these questions, especially when they need to read them. And so I change it to about 120 seconds. I think 2 minutes is a fair amount of time for the children to be able to complete these questions. So I make sure that I have my green check, and then I change the time limit. And then I just go ahead and I fill in the other answers. The fourth one is optional. I don't always do the fourth one just because I don't really think it's necessary, especially when these are timed. So usually I just keep it to 3. Once I find and I make all my answers, I go in Google and I just type in an image that I want to use to upload right here. And I just drag it over to my desktop because I think that's the easiest thing to do. Then I go ahead and I bring it back and I just drag it over and I drop the image. And once it's done loading, you can see that there's just an image there. I like to use ones that give the children clues as to what the correct answers are. I just think it's easy and it helps them use context clues. And so that's what I do for my first question. I also noticed that there were other types of questions that I could use. Quiz questions, which is what I just made. True and false, open-ended, and those ones you need to upgrade your membership though. So I just rotate between the quiz and the true and false, which I would probably do anyway because I think that they are the easiest to follow. So I rotate between true and false in the quiz questions, and I just do it the same way. There's just less that you can choose from. I go ahead, change the time, and I type in and create my questions. So as you can see, I have my questions written out. I changed the time to 120 seconds. I uploaded an image that points to the 4 legs of a grasshopper. And then I did my check mark marking the correct answer. And again, you can see that it says 120 right there. There's the green circle, and then it says 120, and there's a green circle. So I know that these two are ready to go for the most part. And then I'm going to click Add Question, and I'm going to do another quiz question, and I'm just going to keep going just like that. So as you can see, I have 10 questions that are all finished with pictures, and I can go through and just make sure that they're all 120 seconds and that they all have a correct answer designated for each question, which they all do. So I am done with this Kahoot. So I'm going to go ahead, go over here and click Done. And it brings me to this right here. Now you can test the Kahoot, you can play it yourself, or you can share it with others. I usually just click Done again because it brings me to the same area, which is my library, which has all the other Kahoots that I've made. And then I go ahead and I click play. And when I click play, this brings me to teach, where they can play at the same time together. It's a live game. Or they can just play it by themselves at home. I think this would be a really cool thing to do after the children got used to the Kahoots and more were playing them. I'm sure Harlan would absolutely freak out over this right here. I usually just do the assign because it seems to be at this point a little bit more realistic that the children are just playing it themselves. But I would like to do this one as well. I just don't know yet how I would go about that. So I've been just clicking assign, which brings me to this. And you basically have a time limit on how long the children have. I pick the last day that it is, which is June 3rd. And I just keep it at 12 p.m. usually. But this activity, this Kahoot, stays in your library, so once the challenge is done, you can just reassign it. So it's not like it goes away forever, it's still in your library. And then I go ahead and I click create, and it brings me to this screen that has the game pin and it has the link. So once I get to this point, I go ahead and I make my thumbnail seesaw activity so the children know that the Kahoot's ready to be played. And I add in this link and I add in this game pin. So once I'm at this point, I leave here and I go back to Seesaw to create that thumbnail for the children. And that's all that it really is. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. I think that they're the most beneficial when we're actually in a classroom setting, but I do think that it's a new fun way for the kids to get engaged with the listening and learning. It's kind of just something to make them more excited to do them. So yeah, that's really all that there is to it. Hope that this was helpful, and yeah, that's how I do it. That's how I make them for the listening and learning activities.